Brother Nkosi, and thank you for joining me for this edition of Keep It Simple, Make It Plain. Today we want to talk about a situation that does come up from time to time in the Black community as a topic of discussion, but one that I think that we have a tendency to be misled about. The issue is that of gun control. By way of intellectual honesty and full disclosure, I do need to point out that I am a pistol instructor, and as such, obviously I'm going to be pro, quote, Second Amendment on this issue, but I'm going to try to be honest, and my position is an honest one, but I wanted to just say that just so that, it didn't seem to come across like I had a hidden agenda or anything. Just put my cards on the table, right? Okay, so why is it that Black people seem to be in favor of gun control? There's a couple of reasons that lends itself to this in general that has an influence on us in terms of our thinking. One, Black people have a tendency to vote Democratic. The Democratic Party has a tendency to be anti-gun. Two, we often find ourselves as victims of gun violence in the community. And we're always told that had there been more gun control, the brother or sister that was killed would still be alive. Well, those are influences, but we need to dig a little bit deeper into that. And I think we can safely see that also influences regional values and experiences. For example, if you happen to live in the North or in other certain metropolitan areas, it's not likely that you are able to legally own a firearm. So therefore, firearm ownership is illegal, which therefore puts it in the hands of people who are engaged in illegal activity. And so part of that illegal activity often includes crimes of finance, which is robbery and protection of drug turf, things like that, or different other things that cause there to be gun violence, whereas the average, quote, law-abiding citizen is unarmed. So, and if he's or she is told that if there was more gun control, then these people wouldn't be running around, they probably would, in absence of thinking these things out for themselves, probably would gravitate towards that position. If you go to the South, it's a different story because legal gun ownership is not uncommon at all. I remember one time visiting my family in North Carolina and drove by where my grand aunt happened to be working in her garden. She was up there with the garden tools and whatnot with a .38 strapped to her side. It was as natural as drinking water. Didn't think twice about it. My grandfather was a Sunday school teacher. Member of the church for many years. Everybody in the family church member. That don't mean that he didn't have a shotgun by his bed and a .38 in the drawer. So, again, depending on the region, you have a different relationship to firearms. But why is it that we're so caught up sometime in this debate around firearms? Well, it's not necessarily Black people that are the only ones being fooled. People in general are often fooled. How are they fooled? Let me give you a good example of how the anti-gun folk work. I remember it was about 2 or 3 years ago. I remember somebody making a statement that 40% of vendors at gun shows are not licensed to sell guns. Whoa. Sounds scary, doesn't it? Sounds ominous, doesn't it? Well, that's probably how it was meant to sound. It was meant to sound ominous and scary. It was also meant to be misleading because it may be true that 40% of vendors at gun shows are not licensed to sell guns, but it's often true that those same 40% aren't selling guns. You know, I mean, they're not selling guns. They're selling T-shirts. They're selling knives. They're selling deer jerky. They're selling knife sharpeners. They're selling a whole range of things, food. So that's what that 40%. Everybody at the gun show is not selling guns. But why bore people with facts like that, right? That's the anti-gun people's view. Why bore people with facts? Recently, a few years, actually wasn't that recent, but a guy went before Congress or the Senate, I forget which one, and was telling them, well, yes, in Florida, you don't have to leave your house to be able to get a gun permit. Really? Wow, that's crazy. You can't have to leave your house. How does that even work? Well, PolitiFact asked them about it. They said, well, if you get this trailer, there's these target practice trailers. I mean, I guess some gun ranges on wheels, shall we call them, right? Theoretically, you could hire them to come to your house, and then they went through this whole thing, how if you did this, and if you did this, and if this, and if that, and if the queen had a dick, she'd be king, and it just went on and on and on, then you could actually get a gun permit without leaving your house. Do you know of anybody that ever did all those things? No, but it's possible. So therefore, they felt that they were within their rights to go before this committee or whatever and make that statement. Patently dishonest. That's how they function. In fact, many years ago when I was anti-gun, that's how I became actually pro-gun, because I kept catching them in a lie. I caught them in one lie, then I caught them in another lie. I was like, well, damn, how much are they lying about? So I started looking more into it for things for myself, and I realized they were lying to me. So I started looking at the other equation, and actually the NRA, at least back then, was most of the time telling the truth. They were telling the truth, and the anti-gun people were lying. Nowadays, NRA is a bunch of right-wing liars themselves, at least in my view. You have to be ultra right-wing, or you just, there used to be a time you could be, quote, a blue dog Democrat and, not be anti-gun, and they let you go. But now it's like, you got to make sure you pledge that you hated Obama and it's just crazy. And now they say things like, oh, well, we support the people should be able to buy silencers a lot easier because, we're concerned about people's hearing. Okay, that's just dishonest. If you want to be a hoe for the silencer industry, just say I'm hoeing for the silencer industry. That's cool. I'm prostituting myself for the silencer industry. But that's what they do. But don't ever think that the anti-gun people, that those people ain't prostituting themselves. They always talk about the money that the NRA gets from all these different people. You don't think that Bloomberg and other people don't give the anti-gun people money? So everybody hoeing, all right? Everybody's hoeing. So what is it that black people need to be doing while these forces are at play and fighting back and forth? What is it that we should be doing? Well, one, we need to be working on control ourselves. What control do we need to be working on? Well, we need to be working on self-control. We need to be working on parental control. We need to be working on community control. And we need to be working on political control. Stuff is real serious nowadays. We need to up our game intellectually. We need to start thinking, being more independent. Matter of fact, a lot of people, you begin to see this more and more, people are registering to vote as independents. Okay? You can't just keep doing the whole Democrat-Republican thing ad infinitum. You need to be registered as an independent. And we need to start pursuing policies that are independent of others, that focus on our needs and our interests. Now, I understand the maladies and the things that happen in the black community. I understand how we got there. I understand the forces that work very hard to keep us there. I'm not apolitical and I'm not ahistorical. But regardless of that, the reality still is, and it hasn't changed, that we need self-control, parental control, community control, and political control. Because then when you have that control and you have that self-love and love for your brothers and sisters in the community, ain't nobody shooting nobody. Ain't nobody shooting nobody. And you don't need no additional laws. There's hundreds and hundreds of gun laws. All the gun laws in the world will not save us. We have to save ourselves. So don't even get caught up in that gun control drama. That's their drama. All right? In fact, if anything, I can't think of any part of history that I've ever seen that even remotely suggests that black people would best be served as being a disarmed people. When would that be? Was it during slavery? Should we have been disarmed then? Or after Reconstruction? Or during Reconstruction? I mean, when was it that we were best served as a disarmed people? I have yet to see that time. Was it Rosewood? Was it during the attack on Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma? Was that a good time to be disarmed? There's never been any time that I've seen for black people to be a disarmed people. What we need to be doing, though, is making sure that we do not hurt each other with those arms, and that those arms are only used in the gravest extreme, and that extreme being to defend ourselves if need be. So hopefully I was able to make that plain. Hopefully I was able to make it clear. Self-control, parental control, community control, all right? Love of self. Peace.